I'm Ryan Pinder, and you're watching Nasty Knuckles.
You're listening to Nasty Knuckles, the Hockey Outlaws podcast, with your hosts, Derek Nasty Sotomayor and former Philadelphia Flyer enforcer Riley Cote, as they go behind the scenes with your favorite NHL players. Time to face off.
All right, welcome back. What's happening, Nasty?
What's up, Rigorelia?
Looking fresh today.
Oh, finally feeling better, buddy. I apologize. Last week we weren't able to shoot. I was under the weather.
Belly up. Couldn't even send a texty poo.
I was hurting, man. I haven't been like that. Pretty fortunate. I don't get sick too often to where I can barely move, but I was there.
You're down and out.
I was out.
What's going around?
Oh, I think there's those drones are spraying shit or something. I don't know what's going on there. But Beaven Baller said he wasn't feeling that great last week. But I do apologize. But we're back.
You inhaling those chemtrails?
Well, I've been inhaling some metal shears too, coming into my lungs. But no, that wasn't it. I was down and out. But
you're back.
I'm back.
Fresh.
David Boreanaz, back.
Oh, yeah.
So back. Quickly, you made the men's league game. First game of the year. We got a nice little win, 2-1. Didn't score. What are we paying you for?
Keeping
your
it
back
tight.
check?
Back checks.
You did back
check. Forechecks.
Back check, forecheck, paycheck, buddy.
No paychecks.
Not when you don't pipe any.
Wow. Did you expect me to?
I didn't expect you to miss the net by 4 feet on that one shot coming down the right side. I was kind of shocked. But you played well. You were skating and your new wheels looked good.
New wheels.
Blades only popped out once.
Fresh steel popped out once.
You had a good guy there to fix it, though, didn't you?
Appreciate you for that.
Yeah, man, of course. But it was nice to get you back on the ice. It was fun. Always fun playing with those guys. Rolling Rock was a good game.
It was.
Hedgehog was really good. Meach was good at the other end. So off to a 1-0 start.
Woo. Let's do it.
Let's go.
See me next year, 2026.
Are you coming Sunday's game?
No, I'm going to be watching the Super Bowl.
That's right. There's no game. Gotcha. Did you know the Eagles are in the Super Bowl?
I got a little text the other day saying that they're in it. So
they're in.
I'm ready.
They're in.
I'm ready to support them.
We'll see what happens. Well, lots has happened since we were together, but the biggest thing I guess we should start with is this trade. Big trade a few days ago. Like I said, I was sick, so we couldn't even do anything about it. I know some people were messaging us. Aren't you a Phillies or Flyers podcast? You're not putting stuff out. Apologize. It was on me. But Joel Farabee, Morgan Frost sent to Calgary for Andrei Kuzmenko and Jakob Pelletier, a 2nd and a 7th round pick. Thoughts?
I can't say I was surprised. We've talked about these two guys being in their names being in the basket, I guess you could say, for some time.
Basically, Ben and Torch's doghouse.
So they hide
that fact.
Yeah. So I don't think they've thrived in their their conditions here in Philly. Not shocked. I think from the Flyers' perspective, it was creating some space, some salary cap space, moving guys in a better situation, so they can hopefully find their games a little more, and in Calgary's situation, maybe make the playoffs, get a little playoff experience there. But it's just one of those moves that I think that the Flyers needed to make. I think, as I mentioned, just create some space as well as move guys that maybe aren't exactly the happiest with their situation here.
Right.
And again, not thriving. So it's the way it goes, creeping on trade deadline. We've talked about, are the Flyers going to be buyers or sellers? Since I think 2 weeks ago, they've dropped, I'm not exactly sure the amount of games, but
well, I think the last 5 were 0-4-1, I believe.
Right, exactly. So it hasn't been on the up and up, and slowly but surely, that separation from the wild card is getting bigger. Are they still within it? Yeah, but I think it's to that point where, they felt the need to make a move. Obviously, Calgary is going to take Farabee's salary and retain it all, which is probably a big part of the deal. And I'm not sure they're done, honestly. I think there might be another move or two. Maybe one, but It's where we're at.
Yeah, I agree. I hate to see those two go.
Yeah, of
I
course.
still think they're young, and you read comments from fans and some people. A lot of the media, almost all of it. Baller and I were talking about this earlier. Right now, the way it is, I think you give Calgary the win. But on the other side of that, first of all, this is where you see where Danny Briere. This is a hard job.
Sure,
and we know that, and I know Danny. Love those two guys. I mean, he even said it. His first job was to kind of look after Morgan Frost, kind of help him become a pro and all of that stuff. So I know that was a tough trade to make for him, throwing Frosty in there. But at the end of the day, like you said, and listening to Danny talk, you're never going to say you're giving up on the season. But the idea on a rebuild is not to finish kind of like we did last year, but I just think these guys are young, so that part of it I don't really like. But I don't think they were thriving with Torts. Obviously, he kind of has some. I don't want to say he has anything against them, but it's always those two. Either in the stands, getting benched. And I think they're happier now, so I'm happy for them. Mm-hmm. They've played 3 games now with Calgary. I think they're 1-2, and both have scored a goal, but. We're going to bring in our buddy Ryan Pinder in a few minutes here to talk about the other side that we don't know as much about these players. But like I said, for Danny, he did clear a little bit of space.
Yep.
This Kuzmenko is coming in, his deal's up. So if you don't like what you see, Danny said, I want to see firsthand what this guy can do. He definitely, we watched some of his highlights, and I remember him from a couple years ago scoring 40 goals or close to it, 39. Yep, 39. And then even last year when he went to Calgary there, he put up 14 goals in 29 games. So he definitely can score. Mm-hmm. It's probably the defensive side of the puck, which is going to drive Torts fucking crazy if he can't play that. Mm-hmm. So how much is he going to be sitting along with Matvey every time they make a mistake, which we can get into that later. But for me, I guess you got some space, I guess get some more, I think the real cap relief, if I'm not wrong, Baller, comes in 2026 is when we lose a lot more of the contracts. So probably more moves for Danny. I don't think there'll be any buying, unless it's something like where Homer, no, we don't have a Forsberg anymore, but when Homer traded for some younger players, maybe something like that happens. Yeah. But I don't think you're going to be looking to add anything. Danny did say, though, he alluded to, they are looking for a number 1 centerman, but at the same time, it's not that easy to get.
And they're not that easy to find.
Someone I read, I think it was yesterday, Pettersson from Vancouver, well, he's an elite player, but he's having a tough time. We can get into that as well with other trades that we were going to talk about. But to me, I guess it's, you cleared some space. Yep. You'll clear a little bit more after this season's over. And I think you are going to fall lower into the standings, which is good for draft picks. Although this isn't a really crazy strong talented draft this year. But it is what it is, man. It's a tough decision. That's why Danny gets paid the big bucks,
Well, that's it, right? And not that a second rounder is,
You never know, right?
You never know, right?
The seventh rounder could end up being...
that's exactly it, right? I mean, and I think that one's in, 2026 or 27, but this one is a second round. The next draft here coming up is a second rounder, and who knows? You know what I mean? But, the deal to me just screams, rebuild, right? I mean, you're just moving some pieces.
Which we know.
Which we know. And I love Beezer, love Frosty. You could say maybe they were underachieving in this environment, and for the amount of money that Farabee's making, it's off the books now. Obviously, I don't think he was playing up to that salary necessarily.
When he got to play.
Yeah, well, exactly.
Either in the stands or on the bench.
Totally agree. And so I think it just it moves these guys on to a better environment, hopefully, where they can thrive. And again, maybe a couple of these, at least one of these two pieces could be temporary. It's all performance driven, right? So if this guy comes in, Kuzmenko specifically, and somehow finds a way to play a balanced game, we know he can score and generate offense. It's just the question mark is, is the D side of the game, which
Right.
it seems like it's his problem the last couple of years. And then this Pelletier sounds like a great glue guy, a great character guy. I could see this guy being around for a couple of years, and part and parcel of the quote unquote rebuild. Just having good character guys in the locker room, glue guys, but knowing what he is and knowing the ceiling he has.
Yeah,
probably not much more a third line winger, but it's just the nature of the business in these situations. You have to get creative, I guess, right?
Yeah,
and
you have to
kind of loosen things up, and
you have to. I'm just interested to see, like Danny, like I said, he had kind of alluded to trying to get a big piece in at some point. Maybe not this week or by March 7th, but yeah, at some point, which will be interesting to see. But there's some boxes you got to check. You got to, obviously goaltending is one of them. Urs has been way better. Like he's played well. But at the end of the day in a rebuild, you're going to need a goalie. You're going to need that stud defenseman, maybe more than one, obviously. And then we need a number one centerman, which everyone knows, and that's not putting anyone down that's playing center for the Flyers. You lose Frosty, who's I'm not trying to say he's a number one centerman, but your depth there is not
exactly
overwhelmingly great. But it's a tough job, man, and this is part of it, like you said, like part of the rebuild. So I trust Danny, and I know he's doing what he feels is best, and we'll see what happens.
Yep. Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Can't wait to see these guys in the lineup.
I know, if it ever happens.
If it ever happens. Sounds like it's going to happen.
Riles, we got our take on this. Let's bring in our good friend Ryan Pinder from FlamesNation, following them every day, and great podcast. So let's have him jump on with us.
All right.
All right, Riggs, let's welcome in our friend from out west where it's a balmy negative 55 from what I've been hearing when I watch you guys' show. A little chilly from the Barn Burner podcast, FlamesNation, Mr. Ryan Pinder joining us. We're only about 6 days late, and it is my fault. I was sick last week on this trade. You're probably sick of talking about it. But we wanted to get your insight. You're out there, you're following the team. You guys, your podcast is awesome. You guys are 5 days a week there. So I like tuning in, hearing you guys. You don't take yourselves too seriously. You like to have a little bit of fun, like Riley and myself. So anyway, the big trade everyone's talked about. Well, there's been a few, but the one here in Philly, Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost come out west there to you guys, to the Calgary Flames, for Andrei Kuzmenko and Jakob Pelletier, along with a second and a seventh. Who knows where those will end up? But we wanted to get your take, Ryan, on Kuzmenko and Pelletier, and basically, first off, your thoughts when this trade happened.
Yeah, thanks for having me, fellas. The beautiful thing about really, really cold weather is that it's the same in Fahrenheit and Celsius at like minus 40. So if you get close to that, no one's confused. You just say minus 40. Everyone knows what you're talking about. It's bleeping cold. I remember the deal breaking. It was funny. I actually swung by the studio. My kids, I have twin boys, are 9, and we had hockey practice. And we had someone else doing a post-game show. Like, I have an issue with the Wi-Fi. I'm like, all right, I'll swing by. Pop in, and two of our, broadcasters here, watching the game, getting set for post-game, and they're like, I think there's a trade coming. I'm like, oh, boy, okay. So take the kids home, plunk them in bed, zip back, and it was like we just started a live stream until the trade broke, and it was little bits and pieces. First, it was Andrei Kuzmenko, a late scratch ahead of a Flames game that he was supposed to play. The team had him as, just coincidentally, the warm-up photo, like, game day today, and here's our game day skate. And the two pictures they had were Pelletier and Kuzmenko, which was totally coincidental. I don't think you do that on purpose.
No, I hope not.
And according to Craig Conroy, it actually just sort of sped up quickly that day, that he'd been talking to the Flyers about Frost forever, which makes sense from a Calgary perspective. They basically, fellas, have two centermen that are known commodities in the NHL, Nazem Kadri and Mikael Backlund. They're 34 and 35. And while you're trying to retool, they have no centers in the system. Now, Connor Zary has played a little there this year and looks all right there. He's potentially a center long-term, but it's been get a young center right from the opening press conference from Craig Conroy. a year and a half ago. So the conversations around Frost have been happening for a while, but he and Farabee come in. I think everyone understands why it makes sense for the Calgary Flames. They're in a playoff spot. They're much more competitive than they thought they'd be. They're getting some great goaltending from Dustin Wolf, and they don't score a lot, and they have tons of cap space. Okay, all that makes sense. And for the Flyers, hey, I mean, there's a lot of money left on that Farabee deal, and it just felt like these were not Torts guys. And if Torts is your guy, then these weren't going to be your guys.
That's right.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that one, especially with these two. They've had their ups and downs since Torts has been here. But I think for we hear things. We're not, your games are later. I'm a hockey nerd. I usually stay up and watch games, but I don't have a lot on Kuzmenko except for the fact that, he had a great rookie year. We all know in Vancouver under Bruce, there it is. And, and next year Talk comes in and, Talk's a good friend of ours, and he's a bit of an old school guy. I don't know if they just were bumping heads or what. Maybe you can fill us in on that. And then he comes to you guys last year, he comes to the Flames last year, and actually heats up pretty much in the last, 30 games. I think he had 29 games, had 14 goals or something. Yeah. So what's the issue with him or that you see maybe? Why has he fallen out of favor there?
Yeah, he's an interesting case because he lit up the K. He came over as an older 20-year-old. And you see that occasionally from Russia, guys that, aren't necessarily of note around their draft time and then turn into really, really good players in Russia. And I think of Panarin as an example is one of them, but there's lots of guys like that. But to score 39 goals in your first year ever in the NHL is preposterous. That's crazy. I mean, it's not Teemu Selanne 76, but in sort of this modern era, it's like, wow, imagine a guy that has never played in a North American rink, comes over. He kind of is, at that age, you figure you are what you are. There's not much development left. He scores 39. And then the next year, he's rotting in the press box every once in a while because It's like, I don't really like the way he plays defense. He was included in the massive Elias Lindholm deal. The Flames moved out Lindholm to Vancouver for 5 pieces. Hunter Brstevich is a prospect that's in the American League, a first, a third, a throw-in guy, and Kuzmenko was a guy that kind of helped make the money work. But I think the Flames also were like, hey, this guy did score 39.
Yeah.
And they changed coaches. Maybe we get him a different coach. He's a guy that can score again. And he was exactly that after the deadline. To your point, he scores 14 and 29. Like, that's a half goal a game, guys. That's you're talking another 40-goal pace. So 39 as a rookie, 40-goal pace in Calgary. And it's like, shit, like that guy you might be able to spin out at the deadline in a year and get a similar type of deal like you did for Lindholm. And then this year comes around and Ryan Huska is coaching this team to get in the playoffs and win. And I think he's running into the same issues that Rick Tocchet ran into. And I think it'll be the issues that John Tortorella will eventually run into. Maybe not this year, because I do sort of think the Flyers are looking at next year. I don't think Torts is going to coach his ass off to try to get them 5 points higher this year. Not that he's milling it in, but I just sort of think in those lost final months of a season, there's a little more, I guess, flexibility and looseness amongst guys, not the intensity of 1-goal games where you lose, you're out of the playoffs, you win, you're in the playoffs. Like here's the thing about Kuzmenko, incredible hands, great shot, really crafty player, doesn't move his feet. Yeah. They put these chips in the jerseys or whatever, this NHL tracking data. He's like one of the 5 slowest guys for average speed. Wow. It doesn't mean he can't move. It's just the way he plays, he doesn't really. He's sort of surveying and pivoting, and now he's going to use his hands. It's a little burst here, burst there, but he's just not moving a lot. He's not covering a lot of ground, which is interesting. Because if he did, he'd probably be Pavel Bure, to be fair. But
yeah, right.
His hands are that good. So I don't know. It really, if you told me that there was a guy that wouldn't work with Tortorella, this would be one of my higher picks. Yeah. The defense is waning, and it's he's left 2 coaches when it mattered wanting more, and when he was at his best, it was 2 coaches that were just like, whatever. Flames are out of the playoffs, who cares? And Bruce Boudreau was like, like, we're not good, go get it, boys. So I don't know how it's going to work with him, and I kind of think we're close to last call here. A player of his caliber is going to get paid in Russia. He played at SK St. Petersburg. It's Putin's favorite team. It was Mishkov's, I think, 16 or 17-year-old year there. His last year, he was well over a point a game, which not a lot of guys do in the K. If he doesn't have a strong finish here, he'll go make big money back in Russia. And again, he's going to turn 30 next year. Like it's
right.
I don't like, do you want to go on a PTO somewhere? Do you want to sign 1 year, $1 million? You could. You'll make more at home though. You're going to be a star in that league because you were last time you left. So I don't think it's about Kuzmenko. But that said, the Russian guy might help Mishkov. They didn't overlap a ton. I think Mishkov only had 13 games that year, and then Kuzmenko was gone the next. So it's not like they're homies necessarily, but a familiar guy, another guy that speaks the native tongue wouldn't hurt. And, maybe he catches fire and it's like, shoot, we can move this guy to the deadline for a third. Right. Nice. Free pick. Pelletier is a different story. You'll probably want to talk about him. Kuzmenko, it's just all this skill and really lovable guy, funny. The English is horrible, but he leans into it. He'll be a fan favorite.
I appreciate that
right away. Yeah.
Make a difference in the lives of Philadelphia's youth by joining the roster. Ed Snyder Youth Hockey and Education's monthly giving program. Your support provides under-resourced youth with access to hockey, academic guidance, and life skills development, all at no cost to them. By becoming a member, you'll help shape a brighter future for student athletes, empowering them both on and off the ice. Plus, enjoy special perks like exclusive Wells Fargo Center event access and Flyers memorabilia giveaways. Visit snyderhockey.org today and become part of the roster.
I was going to say, one of my buddies that's out in Calgary he used to play here. He what did he say, Riggs? He said you better get a defibrillator on the bench for Torts.
Oh yeah.
Because he is not going to like this. He's not going to like Kuzmenko's game.
Yeah. It's always this classic, the dilemma when you have like high end skill like that, and you got a guy that just I don't want to say abandons the D zone, but just fails to move his feet and do the little things, especially with old school coaches like, as you mentioned, Torts, Talk, and these guys. Right? There's just a brand of hockey in a certain way you have to play. And then you build out from, right? And the offense comes from the way you play. It's not the other way around. And I think, with what you're saying towards the end of his North American hockey career, I guess you could say he's going to go make money. Does he want to deal with that pressure? Does he want to deal with that type of energy behind him? He's going to have to the rest of this year. But like you said, maybe he compliments Michkov a little bit, adds a little.
Well, they could both be sitting on the bench because he made a mistake the other night. Matvey, the Magic Man there, he made a mistake and he got actually fairly animated. I don't know if you were able to see that, Ryan, but they kind of got into it. Torch sat him the rest of the game, and they were short Farabee because they pulled him.
Right.
So now to basically flex your chest, you have Michkov sitting on the bench when you're only down 2 and 3-0. You end up with a power play in the third. You end up with a 4-on-4.
Yeah.
Like Riley said earlier, you yelled at him, hang the phone up and let the kid play because
totally.
I don't know how much it helps him just sitting there all the time. And so we were just laughing now you're going to be, if he doesn't like, if Kuzmenko is what we're hearing, as far as that side of the puck goes, he could be sitting right beside him.
Yeah. The thing with those guys, like if they're scoring, and they've earned those top line minutes, and you're one of the go-to guys, and you could load them up on ozone and sort of live with the passable defense. Mm-hmm. But if they're not, they're just these glaring holes because other guys are getting those opportunities that are scoring. I don't know where the Flyers are at depth-wise after this trade, but if there's a hole in the top line, he can go play there. I wouldn't be surprised if he plays well there.
Exactly.
The challenge is when he's not scoring, what the hell does he do? Like he was stuck on 2 goals until about 10 days ago where he popped a pair against Minnesota, like 2 goals. 2.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And so, it's not going to be a long-term fit with Torts, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to make it work short-term and, maybe they flip him. Maybe it's just the end of the year. But Pelletier is going to be a much more Torts type player. He's a former first rounder that's not huge, but plays with great pace, great energy, a lot of enthusiasm. I don't know that there's a ton of ceiling there in the sense that I think the best case scenario is probably, a third line winger that buzzes around and might score you 20 a couple times. Like, I don't think this is a guy he'll be a first liner in a few years. But that said, he's going to be a real helpful guy and a guy that will fit in nicely in a room. So
nice.
He's going to be a guy that I think Flyers fans like. But again, it's just, if you're going to play that energy line role, it's a little harder when you're 5'10", 175.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agreed on that. And we listened to Torchetti talk about him back in the day, or just having him as a player. And he talked about his character and everything you're saying, just like the work and the pace and just the glue. I say glue
Leadership.
guy. The fact that he's 5'9", probably playing like, he's over 6 feet. How long can he sustain that is probably another question. But it sounds like he's got the drive and heart, and at least from a short-term perspective, it seems like a nice fit, right? I mean, at least it's it's not a needle mover as far as offense, clearly, but as far as like building a culture, it certainly fits into what they're trying to do there, at least temporarily. But I like what what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
About
Jacob. Yeah.
But like you said, there's not a whole lot of ceiling there. But you do need guys like that, and if they can stay healthy and keep that energy high, I mean, we'll see where it goes. But I like to see him in the lineup.
Interesting anecdote with him. He had a really, really good camp last year. Got hurt right at the end, and it was like because he had a monster year in the American League the year before. Like, we're talking well over a point a game, which is impressive for a guy that in his young 20s in the American League. And you're like, okay, it's time. He's a first rounder. He's gonna make the team this year. Gets injured at the end of camp. Like, it's just the worst timing. Doesn't come back till the new year. First game back, Trouba drills him. You're like, oh no. Boy. And he just sort of was like, tiptoeing on broken glass the rest of the year. Went down to the American League in the playoffs, was not impactful. And you're like, did they just lose a prospect? Like, was that just the worst, run of, coincidences that led this guy to, he's just lost his confidence at the wrong time. Now he's getting passed in the system. Like, we see it everywhere where, the wrong timing for injuries and things cost prospects sort of that spot or pecking order. And it was like, shoot, like, he's cooked, and he gets sent through waivers this year. Anyone can have this guy for free in October. Anyone. Right. A first rounder, skill. No one takes him. He goes down to the American League, and rather than pout or, do the woe is me routine, works his ass off, gets called back up, has been a great NHLer. So if you want the character story, that's it. A lesser human would have pointed the finger at everyone else, but he just pulled up his socks, worked harder, and is, I think, carved himself in the process of carving out a role in the NHL. So tip of the cap for him on that. It was a really tough year last year with those two injuries.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Awesome.
That's great insight. And, from a first rounder, we've seen this before a little bit with Scott Lawton, maybe similar type of character, right? And probably glue guy within the locker room. But, years ago, played 2 or 3 years with the Flyers, sent down to the minor leagues, great attitude, did all the things he needed to, and established himself and found his way. I think what you're saying is probably accurate. Like exactly. Yeah. I mean, that to me, it's like the energy, attitude, and work ethic are really the only things you can really control. Sounds like he's done that, and here we are talking about him in a positive light, right? I mean, as a character guy that you want to be talked about. So I'm looking forward to having him in the lineup. We could use a little energy, obviously. Obviously, any locker room could use a good guy. Great guy, sounds like.
Yeah, because we did lose to, I was still the equipment guy when Joel and Frosty came into the league, and we've remained good buddies, and they're actually super excited to be there. They needed a change. Both of them really did. I was going to ask you, I know it's a short it's been 3 games, but I wonder what your thoughts were on them so far. I know they're probably squeezing the stick a little bit, just trying not to screw up too much, but they're super happy to be there.
Yeah, I get the sense that, it's that fresh start that sometimes players, yearn for when it hasn't gone great, and it's just a new set of circumstances and a chance to reestablish what you are. I thought neither were great in the first game, but you saw flashes of what they could be. Frost scored a gorgeous goal on Sunday in Seattle. Like, walks in, splits a defender, zips it, high glove. You're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Not many guys have that in the bag, especially at center ice in this organization here. So that was impressive. And Farabee had one go in off his ass last night, so he'll be happy about that one. And they're playing him up top. They're playing with Kadri and Huberdeau. Those are the two veteran, most known offensive quantities in the NHL. He's going to get a lot of looks there. And they, I don't know that I have exactly figured out what he is yet, but talking to people that have watched him a ton, be it in Philly or at the World Championships, like, he's a guy that can play with skill. He's going to be, he could be a plumber on a really good line rather than just have to be a meat and potatoes guy on a third line, right? He can play with some skill. So we're starting to see that come to fruition. But Frost, to me, is the really intriguing part because of the scarcity at center here. And he's really helped on the power play with just puck movement, that small area skill, the hands, zone entries. I've noticed him a ton on the man advantage. He scored 2, 5, and 3 goals last night, and the power play has been actually pretty good for a team that doesn't have a lot of scoring wherewithal. So that's some of the early impacts. But he's an RFA this summer. They're gonna have to decide whether you qualify him at 2.5-ish or throw a pile of money at him. So they're gonna play the crap out of those two guys and see what they are for sure.
Yeah, you brought up a great point a little bit earlier. You mentioned Dustin Wolf, and on your show, you guys were talking about maybe Connie doesn't pull the trigger if you don't have Dustin Wolf. I mean, this guy looks like he's for real. Knock wood. Yeah. I don't want to jinx the kid, but man, I watch a lot of your guys' games, and this kid's good, man.
Yeah, last night's not the one that you want to show.
Right? Yeah. That's true.
I mean, that's a rare. I think that's only his 4th loss at home this year. I think it was 13-4-1, so 13-5-1 now.
Impressive.
That's filthy numbers for a rookie. Mm-hmm. There hasn't been a rookie win the Calder since the 2000s. I think there was 3 of them in the 2000s that won. And look, he's not huge. That's been the storyline. Like he was a 7th rounder with the exact same stats on all the same teams as Spencer Knight, who went in the top 15 picks. Just days before they signed Sergei Bobrovsky, interestingly, Dale Talon. But, if he's 6'2", with the same stats, he's going in the same round. He was on all those World Junior teams with Spencer Knight, but it's like, wow, he's listed at 6, but I saw him standing next to a guy at 6. I don't think he's 6. He's living at 6.
Right.
Yeah. But it's the lateral movements through the roof. And, at the next level, I mean, he's just
next level.
And then there's, once he gets to the Western League, I mean, now you're talking junior hockey, not going to be big enough. Well, in the Western League, if COVID didn't happen and they didn't shorten the schedule for 2 years, he'd have the records for wins and shutouts in league history. He won goalie of the year there twice. Well, okay, sure. But now pro ranks, once he gets to the American League, first year in the league, wins the top goaltender award as a rookie in the A, where you usually see guys go down to the coast. Second year in the league MVP and top goalie.
Wow.
He's dominated every level he's played at, fellas.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So there was even naysayers. Well, right. But I mean, in the NHL, they're going to shoot it better. Like, but you guys, are you not seeing a trend here? Like every league he's gone to, he's dominated. So there is, I think the haters have been fought off pretty nicely here in the first, 2/3 of a season. But if you get a chance to watch him play, like his edges, his lateral movement, his quickness, his positioning, like the other guy here is 6'7", 6'8", Dan Vladar.
Yeah.
He looks like Dikembe Mutombo when he's standing next to Wolf, and he's the guy sliding all over the place. You're like, where's his technique? If he had Wolf's technique, there's no net to look at. Right. And there's been a half goal a game difference between the two. He's been that good. So I've been really impressed with him, and it's changed everything here. I still think they make this type of move. Certainly the Frost part, at least.
Yeah.
Because they've just stated it as an organizational need right since the introductory press conference when Treliving left and Conroy came in. Like, we need to go find an age-appropriate young center. Right shot would have been better, but Frost fits the bill on everything else. Maybe you don't add the Farabee, who's going to help on a playoff push rather than but still, he's only 24, so maybe you would have. But certainly with the team in a playoff spot at the moment of that trade, I think they were happy to get this done rather than drag their feet on it and get closer to the deadline.
Yeah, and I will add, Farabee's got a few more dimensions to his game, and if he comes back to where he was a couple years ago, man, he's a skill guy for sure. Can shoot, can skate, but he does have an edge.
He has an edge,
and I'd like to see that really kind of find that edge again, and just round out his game a little bit more. I'm not sure. Whatever his mindset was with the Flyers, if it was just, a lack of confidence, frustrated, it was a wasted energy and all that. But I think, kind of being reborn here in Calgary and get an opportunity to play with some high-end guys and find his game, I think you guys are going to be pleasantly surprised if he can get back to even close to where he was at a couple of years ago. Because especially, gearing up for playoffs and that, carrying that chip on his shoulder, you need that, obviously. I think he can bring that.
Yeah, it seems like a guy where, despite the circumstances, had 22 goals last year in a very up and down year. Like, it screams to me that everything clicked. He could flirt with 30, maybe not every year, but one of those years where everything hits and you're like, that's a good player.
Yeah.
And he's going to get all the looks here. They're a team that has a tough time scoring goals, and there's no one you can put down for 30 every year. No one. Like, Nasm's going to flirt with it. Hubert has only ever done it twice. Coleman did it last year, but that's riding hot shooting percentage, great player, but he's not get 30. Like, they don't have a 30 goal guy. Maybe Coronado becomes that, which would be great, another first rounder. But like, Farabee's going to get a lot of opportunity to score just because that's where they're getting crushed. Like, Their penalty kill is not great, and they don't score enough goals. Everything else is sort of playoff caliber.
Yeah.
Yeah. In saying that, do you see Conroy making any more moves here before the March 7th deadline?
I do. As long as they're in this race, like it's you guys are seeing it in the East, and it's not as stacked up in the West. But it's like if you lose 3-4 in a row, everything looks different.
Yeah.
Yes.
If Columbus loses 3-4 in a row, they're out of it. If Boston does, they're out of it. Detroit gets hot, they're in. Ottawa, Boston, like it's a clump out there. It feels more like a 2-horse race here with Vancouver. But Thatcher Demko was unbelievable last night. They showed the Avs. They're clearly not better on paper without JT Miller, but they didn't trade him because everything was going great. There was clearly a dark cloud in that room, and they've cleared that out. We'll see how much that helps in terms of them getting going. But as long as they're in this race, they're going to add another defenseman because they've got a bunch of 6, 7, 8 guys rotating through the top 4. And it's just because they only have 3 top 4 defensemen. I mean, Kevin Ball's been a nice add in the Markstrom deal. He's big, defensive, stay-at-home guy. Weegar and Anderson, really good top pair type guys that can run power play units that, both could be at the Four Nations, depending what Canada does with that Pietrangelo spot. But after that, you're rolling through like waiver claim guys like Hanley or Pahal's playing a ton. Tyson Berry's on a PTO here. He's playing a bit. Jake Dean was I don't know how good he is. Probably better suited as a third. So they got all these third pair guys, but every night one of them has to go play with Mackenzie Weegar. And so that's an area I think if you want to, like, getting in would be unbelievable. This team has no right to be there on paper. It's based on goaltending, work ethic, and structure. It'd be a great story.
Yeah.
But remember, getting in, the celebration doesn't last too long because now you got to go face like the Oilers in round 1.
Yeah.
Go get your face punched in, 8 days in jet fuel, and it's like, what happened? So you're gonna have to upgrade that blue line if they're looking like a team that's got a better than 50-50 chance to get in.
Yeah.
Right.
It's good insight.
Yeah. We appreciate you, Ryan. We know you got to get ready for your show, man. And we appreciate you jumping on, and it's great insight because, everyone around here in Philly, like, you hear a little bit, but it's nice to get it from someone that's actually there every day and watching these guys and knows more about them.
Appreciate it, fellas. Anytime, and we'll do the same. Always good catching up with you. If we get another Briere Conroy blockbuster, we'll chat again.
All right,
Sounds
brother.
good.
Thanks again,
See
man.
you, brother.
See you, boys. Thanks.
All right, Pendy, thanks so much for joining us, Riles. He's awesome, man. He knows his stuff, too. Love their podcast.
Yeah,
They're
great.
laid back, good dudes.
Yeah, great insight. Very clear. He knows what he's talking about.
Yes,
so
he does.
hope to see these guys in the lineup.
Yeah, give our fans here in Philly a little sneak peek of what's to come and what was going on there in Calgary. So we appreciate that, Rye. One more question about this, and we'll let it go. I just, as a player, like, obviously I was around the game a lot as an equipment guy, and I kind of know the answer to this, but as a player, when you lose a guy, like when we lost Simmons, man, it was definitely you knew it had to happen, you get it, but like when you lose two players like this that are pretty much glue guys in that locker room, like how does that affect your mental state? Like, I know you're a pro, you got to get over it, you got to play at the end of the day, but there's still a little bit of sadness when something like this happens.
Yeah, I think it's human nature when you have a teammate, a friend, get traded, sent down, whatever the case may be, is always tough, right? I mean, it's you built a relationship with these guys, you've battled with these guys, with them, a good chunk of the week, right? And all of a sudden they're heading out west, and it's just one of those things. I know it's part of the job. Everyone knows it's part of the job.
Still hard,
but it's
right?
it's like just saying those goodbyes. Like it's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Big hugs, and we'll see you soon. And it's just like there's like a little bit of a void, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But as you know, how quickly say that void gets filled, I guess you could say, right? I think Jakob sounds like he's going to be a nice piece to that void. I don't know much about Andrei there, but nonetheless, and guys will have to step up, right?
Yeah,
I mean, it's
for
whether
sure.
Guys that are maybe quieter, or the leaders in the locker room. Obviously Delorier's back; he's been around the team more. Lots will be doing his thing, and it's just kind of the nature of the beast. But always disappointing to see a teammate get traded, get moved, and. I'm sure he'll stay in touch with these guys, but life goes on. The team moves on, and that's the way it goes. So
Yep.
just kind of refocus, reframe, and get these new bodies in the lineup, and hopefully can find some chemistry early and find a groove. Right, they obviously haven't done great the last 5 games, but a little offensive power. I know the Flyers have been playing shorthanded with the missing of these guys, and not having them replaced with the 2 fresh bodies, but. Who knows? You never know, and just hopefully they jump right in and find a way to win a couple games. Just get that feeling back
for sure. Yeah, it'll be nice. Going into last night's game, the Flyers hadn't scored a goal in 3 games, and that is not helpful. Got one right away, though.
Rodrigo.
Rodrigo's first
big
NHL
screen
goal.
D'Lo in front there, big body.
Yep, get D'Lo back. Thank goodness big D'Lo's back from his lower body injury. Nice to see him, and then a great tilt.
Yeah, great tilt.
Sure Baller will have that up, but great tilly. Boy, does he throw hard. Riles,
big tuna.
Fuck, man. Yeah, no shit. But they ended up at least getting a point out of that. They ended up getting a point out of that game. What a way to lose, though. I mean,
oh my gosh,
I guess it saves you the time on the shootout if you lose in a shootout. But Jesus, with like point whatever left,
0.001 seconds. Like that was. I never seen a closer.
I haven't either.
Buzzer beater.
I don't think I have either, except for Ovi's. Speaking of Ovi, the Ovi watch, he got one last night, and it just barely snuck in there with. Point something as well. I was
talk about that goal though, Nas. Do you think that was by design what they were doing on that line change? Man, that's some really heavy thinking, and for you to think and
of
timing
that.
And the timing of it has to be so spot on because you're working with the clock. You probably had like 6 seconds when he's rounding in the neutral zone there.
I have a hard time thinking that was done purposely.
But why would Keller be lurking around there in the O zone?
He probably looked up 2 seconds. I mean, it's over.
But then Lotz is kind of in his way, kind of is it kicking him to the bench? But I don't know. It's nice to think that was by design. Because I was like, wow, that was well thought out. But in hockey, with the time,
maybe someone will use that now.
Exactly. It's almost like a power play breakout where they just take their time and they swoop back and they get the guy stretching.
I didn't think there was enough time left. Even when he had the puck, he kind of wound it back up. I'm like, there's two seconds, boom in the net, and I'm like, oh boy.
I was just as shocked as the whole building.
I was
like,
too.
Holy shit!
Our buddies from Fans of Philly, they were there, and so I'm sure they didn't like that too much.
I was crushing,
but they did find a way to get a point. They scored a couple goals.
Urs played amazing. Honestly, some of those backdoor saves he was making.
Yeah, he's
total
feeling
shots
it.
were over 40 though.
Yeah, he's feeling it. Yeah, they were outplayed.
The
Flyers, but they're also shorthanded. We got a lot of injuries, and obviously missing the 2 pieces that we acquired from Calgary. Moving on, Tony DeAngelo, our buddy.
Back.
Yeah, he's been back. We would have announced this last week. I was sick, but nice to see Tony back in the NHL and playing well. And,
it's good in the blue and orange.
Yeah, he does, and I heard he had his first meeting with Patrick Waugh, and he said, "Play your game. I'm not going to mess with you. Do your thing." And I think that's the best thing that you got a guy like Tony. Obviously, he's jumping up into play. He can skate well enough to get back. You obviously have to worry about the defensive side of the puck. We all know that. But they're playing well right now. They were winning before he joined them. But since he's joined them, what are they, 8-2? 8-2 in their last 10. So happy for Tony. Good friend of the show. Great guy. So good for Tony.
Get him back on. Get his little insights
we will.
there
from. I'm
not sure Lou will let him on here though.
He won't.
Probably not.
That's
why
at the end of the season. Denny Seidenberg.
That's right. Yeah.
I couldn't do it. JVR. Just want to talk about hockey player.
JVR
gets the old
tougher with age.
Oh my God! Fucking ends up with how many stitches, baller? 30 stitches, 4 teeth. Gets back out there, finishes the game, has a helper on the game-winning goal, I believe. Then he has to go back in. How pissed off are you? You just had your face chopped up. I'm sure he was numb, but they got to cut you back open, take a tooth that they left by accident. And I'm sure it's not the first time that's happened, but it was nice to see him come back. I actually messaged him. I said, good God. He goes, oh, what a mess that was. So he laughed and said what a mess that was, but it's a hockey player, man.
Yeah, man.
Something like that happened in basketball, or you get a hangnail, you miss 3 games.
Yeah, I was going to say.
On baseball, too.
On the shelf.
But nice to see JVR. He's got not only his visor, but now he's got the football helmet.
Yeah.
He won't be chucking him for a little bit.
He'll be chucking him. But you got to appreciate like a veteran guy,
Yes.
Going through that and coming back on the other side, like unfazed almost. Right?
Wanted to get back on the ice.
He's could have easily have gone like, you know what, like why?
Screw
Like why
this.
would I bother coming back out tonight? But
That's not him though. That's
No,
not him.
I
And you
appreciate
know what?
that.
That team's playing really well.
Yeah.
They're in a spot, and they're pretty fun to watch actually right now. They just lost.
swagger.
Yeah, they do. They do. So we'll keep an eye on them. Tage Thompson. I know you're always talking to the Sabres.
Old
Gets
Tage.
lit up.
Yep.
Gets lit up by Stefan Nason.
Nice big hit.
And
Oh,
no one
crickets.
even looked at the guy. Some guys said they didn't see it. I understand. I know we're not in the 70s. I understand.
How could you not see it though?
I don't
still
know, but
blown
that's
away.
what guys said. That was some of the comments. We didn't even
How
know
big
what
is
happened.
Tage Thompson?
I mean, he got clocked, and
Helmet 10 feet off his
I'm
head.
just, again, I know the game's a little different, but you have guys get a clean hit, and guys go right away and fight him. I didn't find that to be a clean hit. I know there's no discipline by the league, but
Caught him in a bad spot.
caught him in a bad spot, but he got him right in the head.
Yeah, as he was kind of tipping over.
He was
and,
leaned over, but I mean, usually a head contact's head contact. Either
Yeah,
way,
right.
I'm not upset with NHL as much as I am with 4 other guys on the ice,
was-
not at least going and grabbing him, or I know
Pretend. Like just pretend. Just grab a guy and have like a soft little skirmish.
Yeah.
And just like anything that
Anything.
represents one bit of care.
and I guess it was addressed in the locker room.
Well, how could it not be?
I
I'm
mean,
sure Lindy
that's-
had a little powwow the next morning, and I would like to think that they heard about it before that powwow and thought about it, and maybe right after their game in the locker room there, one of the veterans might have addressed it, but yeah, that was hard to watch. I almost like embarrassed actually for some of these players. 'Cause, like the organization's been in some turmoil for some time, and just
not a
kind
good
of like
look,
highlights the depth of the issues, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you got some leaders on the ice that were right there. I mean, you're right there and just pretended like they didn't see it. And I don't know. We can beat this one to a dead horse, but it doesn't represent the team. And
Would you have
team
done something?
Might have done something. Dude, I honestly, that's one of those. It's like, even if you didn't see the hit, but you just saw the helmet fall off and the aftermath of it, I think you just react to the outcome just based on that. You don't even need to know how bad it looked, what it looked like, who did it. You just you just swarm. Like you just like that. That's why I just can't understand the mindset. I understand we're not living, in the era of Broad Street bullies. Not that this is even about that. It's just about protecting your teammate and just responding to a quasi cheap hit. You know,
for sure.
It just shows that they just really don't care that much, I think, is really what it shows. And
I hate to say that, but I agree. I think that's the way it looks. The optics of it are, I don't want to address this, and we're not there.
Not
we don't, but
my job. It's basically not my job.
It's not, exactly. So anyway, I hope Tage is all right.
Yeah.
It was a tough hit.
We'll have to bring his father in and take care of business. We can bring him back for a game.
Oh yeah, old people.
Brent, yeah, right. 2 people. I mean,
Tomer.
he might have done something.
Yeah, he's out in Anaheim. He saw it. He might have
he
flown
saw
in.
it. He's probably reaching through the computer, I'm sure.
Exactly. Our good friend Ryan Hartman suspended 10 games after
The old head slam.
the old hand slam on Timmy Stutzel there, man. There's just no hiding. That was, he tried to say he didn't mean to, lost his balance, but...
Well, he did. I do agree he lost his balance to some degree. Well, to start.
Right.
That started the crumble. But he decided...
Crumble.
During the crumble, he started to tap little Timmy's head.
Well,
and
then
smashed
the old Greg the
forehead.
Hammer elbow came
Then
out.
he brought in the WWE. But, like that argument of like, didn't mean to is an accident. Like maybe the original stumble or fall was an accident.
Yeah.
But when you lock horns with a guy like that and just absolutely demolish his forehead off the ice, I would say that's intent to injure.
It's he's had quite a few run-ins here
exactly. His reputation
with the league.
isn't exactly the cleanest.
And listen, I've said this before. I take him on my. I love the way he plays.
Yeah.
I love his intensity. That was a little over, crossing the line a bit. Obviously, that's why he ended up with 10 games, and But I do like the way he plays.
For sure. Yeah, he brings it. He plays with grit. It was funny. I was watching the highlight, and I forget who the announcer is for the Wild there, but he was stirring it up before that happened.
Right.
And they're like, Ryan Hartman really trying his best to get something going here. But that just might have crossed the line. And he's like, oh yeah,
crossed the line.
Yeah. He just
Jimmy snuck off the top rope.
Exactly, just barely crossed the line. But I see what he was doing. I was an emotional guy. And a guy similar. He obviously got way more skill, but I understand what he was doing. It's just if frustration seeps in, and some things you just can't do, Nast.
Yep, and that is one of them. That'll get you a
10
nice
games,
10-gamer.
no pay is gonna hurt.
Yeah, it will.
He's gonna reflect on that. Hopefully, puts that stuff away.
Yeah,
play with the grit, play with the chip, but you can't do that.
Can't do that.
Forearm shivering and smashing guys up.
I know. No, you can't do it. You can't do it,
not
boys.
in this day and age.
Nope. You got to bring it down.
You got to bring it down.
Some injuries. Some big name injuries. Heiskanen in Dallas. He's out. He had knee surgery. He's out month to month. That's not good for that team. He's obviously a huge part of their team. Nico Hischier in New Jersey, he's out. Lower body injury. Kirill the Thrill, Minnesota. Yeah, he's out about a month, I think they're saying. It's pretty big names. Drew Doughty made it back.
Yeah.
Pretty tough injury at the beginning of the season in camp, I guess. Was it in camp, Baller? It was in camp, and he fought back, playing 25 minutes a night. He didn't miss a beat. Guy's a hell of a player, probably a NHL Hall of Famer at the end of the day when he's done. Also want to reach out to Nick Cousins. He had a knee injury. He's out, so I think 6 to 8 probably weeks or something like that.
That's tough.
Maybe even more, but wish him all the best. Hopefully he gets better. Another injury there. The IIHF ruled that Russia will not be able to play in the upcoming Olympics, right, Baller? Be interesting if they could be in this nations tournament.
Yeah, right.
If you look through the league and see the lineup that they could probably have, it'd be pretty sick.
Yeah, definitely.
But they're no go for the next 2 years, I believe.
This ain't the little itty bitty teeny tiny bowl. This is the Super Bowl. Get into the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59.
Scoring touchdowns is key to hoisting the Vince Lombardi Trophy, and you have a shot to score big by betting on them at DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns, baby.
New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly.
Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code Knuckles. That's all caps. That's code Knuckles for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. One of the last injuries, Riggs, Matthew Barzal, which is a huge injury, obviously lower body for the Islanders. So lots of injuries right now.
Yeah, it's
coming down the stretch. Be interesting to see if some teams make some moves by March 7th because of that. The cheat code, like Vegas Golden Knights, seem to be able to pull off like they did with Stone last year. No, but a lot of injuries. A lot of injuries. I know. It's a tough game, rough game.
It is.
Happens.
Down the stretch. Hard brand of hockey.
There's been a lot of trades in the last week and a half.
There has been.
So pretty big ones, actually. One that I think took everyone by surprise was Mikko Rantanen for Marty Necas. And I know you've brought up Marty Necas on a couple of occasions about what a player he is. Obviously, both those guys.
Yeah.
It's just Baller, I'm not sure, but what was behind all that? Is that a salary thing? Or?
Yeah, a lot's come out. At first, it sounded like Rantanen wanted $14 million, and the Avalanche weren't willing to go there, so they didn't want to lose him for nothing. So they got Necas, who has team control for a couple years.
Right.
But I believe Rantanen's came out and declined that and said he would have taken a
less,
offer,
right?
Yeah, for less.
Yeah, less money.
So I'm not sure where that stands, but
I know, watching, we talked about this with Frosty and Beezer, but that has an effect on your room. That one especially, because I don't think anyone saw this coming.
No,
and it's huge
player
really good
team.
players,
Yeah, exactly.
and two good teams,
Yeah.
good teams that both obviously have a shot
Yeah.
At making it to the finals. Another one that we kind of been waiting on, JT Miller gets traded back to the Rangers where he was a few years back for sorry. For Philip Hedl and Mancini and a first round pick. Now Riles, they turn around and they flip that first rounder to the Pittsburgh Penguins for Marcus Pettersson. But JT Miller jumping back into the fold with the Rangers. He's had 4 points in 2 games that he's been there. Were you shocked he went to the Rangers, or because of the way they've been playing, they needed a little bit of a mix-up? And in Vancouver, it sounds like some people are like, well, we traded the wrong guy.
Yeah. Not overly shocked, no. I mean, he was drafted by the Rangers. I remember coaching against him. He was in Hartford. You could tell he was, obviously a great player. He competed, he played with heart and passion. Didn't work out for him there in Vancouver. I mean, I think it's just whatever the situation wasn't healthy, and something had to give. Rangers situation could use a guy like that. I mean, he's a leader. He's a veteran guy. He can score. He competes. If I'm the Rangers, I like it.
Yeah, I think you're happy. You're happy with that because he is a gritty playoff type guy. You got to get to the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
But he obviously made his mark felt right away. Mm-hmm. It's probably a little bit easier for him to going into an environment that he's more familiar with because he played there before. But interesting.
Do you guys think the Rangers get in?
Man, you think they've turned the corner. They started going a little bit, and then they lose the other night. JT Miller's first game, they lost to Boston, I think 6-3. They did turn around and win their next game. He had a couple of assists, so you think by looking at that team that they would, especially with Shesterkin and net. But I don't know.
Yeah.
It's Ottawa's hot. Like these teams, like Columbus, like these other
Islanders,
teams are really,
other teams are winning well.
So you can't be 500, I don't think, and get in at this point if you're in the East there in that little area. So and we forgot to mention Detroit.
Yeah, right.
They've been playing really well since
insane,
McClellan came in. So I don't know if they're going to make it, man, unless they really turn it around quickly.
Yeah. I'm not sure. I mean, adding him to me, they're better than they were, obviously.
Right.
I'm just not sure it's enough. They're missing some other pieces there. They're just not consistent enough. And
right.
They've hung around this long, but now, as you mentioned, these other teams are finding ways to win games, and the separation is becoming bigger and bigger every day. And it's going to be a grind. I mean, I still think it's going to be a dogfight to the end. I think you have a weekend off, and all of a sudden you're dropping right back out of that wild card spot or wherever you land up. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it's a good question, Baller, because I watch a lot of their games, but it's just like they just can't get anything going.
Yeah.
And when Shesterkin looks like frustrated as a goalie, and he's like one of the best in the game, obviously. Yeah. So we'll see. Another trade, Riggs, Mikael Granlund and Cody Ceci from San Jose get traded to Dallas for a first and a third. Dallas has a really good team. I guess just trying to beef up a little bit.
Yeah.
Add
a little depth back there.
Yeah, with Heiskanen out.
You mentioned Vegas cheating. What happens when Sagan shows up day one for the playoffs?
It's happening.
Good call. It's happening.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
how can the league somehow create guardrails around that? Like, how do you even
I thought there was talk about that, Baller.
Yeah, I guess the talk last offseason was, do you implement a salary cap for the playoffs? But players don't get paid in the playoffs. That was the argument against it.
That's a great point. Yeah, I didn't even think of that, dude. You don't get paid.
Well, you know that there's been conversations going back probably a couple of years, honestly, with that, because even back with Tampa did it with Kucherov, right?
Yeah.
That they're trying to build guardrails around that because, I guess you're playing within the loopholes of the game.
Yeah.
You're technically not really breaking any rules, I guess, but I think at some point they're gonna have to find a way to maybe regulate that.
I think if you're a team that you're getting in, that's a move. Like you said, there's a loophole there. Like if Sagan does come back, what if they same with Heiskanen, and he doesn't come back and it gives you more cap space, but then he comes back for the playoffs. Yeah. That's huge for a team like Dallas. If Ottinger and net obviously was one of the best goalies in the league. I guess we'll see. Yeah, it's all interesting.
But it's an even playing field too, right? Because anybody can do it.
Anyone can do it. Yeah.
So you just have to get creative and
But that's a great point Baller made about them saying, well, they're not getting paid, so how can you put a salary cap on that? So it will be interesting to see.
Yep.
For sure.
All right, Nast, it's that time.
Now?
Right now.
For Clear Questions?
Been waiting for it.
Clear Questions. Brought to you by our good friends at Clear Rum. Go to clearrum.com/shop. Type in Nasty 2023. Get 35% off of your order. PA residents only. Baller, come on, baby. What do you got?
Leading us off today, we got Tommy Cabernet over on Twitter.
Tommy
asks, can Nasty go into detail on the process of players getting traded as far as gear, jersey, numbers, setup? Seems like a lot to go on behind the scenes that doesn't get recognized.
Good question.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. You basically send them with everything because if it's, say a player, say Beezer and Frosty are going to meet Calgary on the road instead of at home, you just send all their stuff because they may be putting just a shell over for the game. Mm-hmm. A lot of teams now, you'll carry pants anyway. Obviously, I always carried basically a size of every company's gear, 13-inch, 14-inch, 15-inch gloves from Bauer, from CCM, from whatever companies there were, helmets the same. You carry all that extra stuff. But what we would do is I would just send a player with all their stuff and then box up their practice gear, which is the same as their game gear, but they wear for practice because most teams have two sets. And then I would send that. You send them with all their sticks. And usually it's reciprocated back from the team if you're getting a player. They send them with what they have, sticks-wise and skates and all that stuff. So it is you always make that call, too, as soon as you hear about a trade. Oh, Cote was traded for Balinov, so I call him hey, what's he use? What's he like? What kind of tape even? I used to ask what kind of tape because if we didn't use that kind of tape, I would get a box tape that this guy liked. Like Phil did for that. He liked sports tape. So lot of little things go into it. It's a great question.
Yeah.
You basically send them with everything you have for them, even their laundry, even though they're not going to wear Flyers laundry. But that way when the guy gets there, they dump their bag, they see what they like to wear, and then you pull your team stuff. Right. So it's a great question.
Yeah, and I was going to say too, I would say that once the trade is official, probably the first call is made to you, right?
Right.
I mean, it's that's the next
Homer
line of action.
Homer was really good about things like that because he would give me a heads up.
Yeah.
Hexy liked to keep things, on the DL till it was done, which I understand that too because shit leaks but it was nice when you knew and you could kind of get ready for it.
Yeah.
And sometimes you couldn't get ready for it. Sometimes something happened and be like, hey, but you're right. Usually it's the first call and you get on the horn and you start figuring out what's going on.
Yeah.
You ever leak a trade?
No. God, no. Oh, I wouldn't do that. I told Hexy that one time. I'm like, it was when Vinny LeCavier and Luke Shen got traded to L.A. and we were leaving and I had already, their gear was on the plane. We were leaving from the skate zone, so I had the skates, everything, and I had no idea. Luke Shen came down the hall, and he's like, Nast, gonna miss you, bro. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna miss you too. I'll see you in 25 at the plane. I'm thinking he's just messing around, being Luke, and he's like, no, me and Vinny got traded. I'm like, what? I'm like, no,
Totally
you didn't.
caught off guard.
I had no idea. I'm like, are you serious? Are you messing around with me right now? And he was like, no, I swear. And they're just waiting for it to go through. So now, thank God, I opened up the trunk, had to pull their skates, had to call over to Atlantic Aviation, pull their gear without anybody knowing.
Oh, yeah.
And open up the stick bag, pull all their stuff out. And we literally, our flight, I can't remember where we were going, but we ended up about an hour and a half late because they were waiting for that trade to go through. And it was funny because Luke and Vinny were sitting in a car, like, and we could see him from the plane because we're all waiting.
Yeah, right.
And I just said, like, I would never, like, if you can give me a heads up, it would have been a lot easier because I would never tell anyone. I just need to know. But, again, no, I never leaked anything, Baller, but that was a great question.
RJ Smiley over on Twitter.
Smiles
wants to know, did you ever have competitiveness or a feeling of rivalry towards the other equipment staff? Did the on-ice battles bleed into the guys on the staff? I know Nasty had an edge on the bench.
Yeah, I was always fired up, that's for sure. That's just me, though. You know that.
Nothing to do with the Sudafed coffees for the game.
Well, it has to do with my mindset and how competitive. I hate to lose, you know that.
Joking. Yeah,
but yeah, no, that stuff. You add that in.
Fires up the
it gets a
nervous
little
system,
wild. Thank God the Devil's D wasn't thrown out there because then I would have
you stepped it up a
probably
couple notches.
been in a straitjacket. They would have been in the back.
Tossed out of the
But
arena.
I was fired up. I just, playing sports your whole life and being around it, you get fired up. But no, I never really had any issues with any other staff. Like, we're all friends, and I've seen it get heated with some guys, like going back and forth, but I never had an issue with anyone because it's not between us, but you do kind of like not like other teams sometimes.
You didn't want to improve your fight record?
It's 0-4-1. I'm done, boys. As
You weren't looking down the bench, sizing a guy up for two.
I don't think there was anyone I wanted to mess with.
He's the smallest guy.
Yeah, I know, right?
13-year-old towel boy.
The towel, yeah, maybe one of the stick boys, 13. My luck, they would know karate or something.
Right?
Just chop me right in the throat.
Oh man, good question. Thank you.
Gritizen0 from Twitter. He says, can you guys let us know your opinions on Michkov's ice time, and is it something that seems right based on your careers?
I'll say this, bless you, buddy. I'll say this about, we didn't really get into it, but look, Torch is the head coach. Every time he's done something with Meach, he's come back stronger and played well. So I can't question or second guess, but I just did not agree with him getting benched for basically 2 periods a week and a half ago. And you could see Matvey wasn't happy. Like, he was animated going back and forth. I said earlier, like you said, you gave me shit, hang the phone up, play. We're already short a guy that night because Morgan left the game. What's the reason in shortening your bench another player? Just to show what? That part I don't like. I don't agree with that. You had a power play in the third. You're not. This team has shown that they will fight back and can get back in a game. Having him on the bench when you're not scoring goals as it is, to me, like, put the kid out there. Like, he gets the point. You yell at him, he made a mistake, and we always hear from Torch too. They're gonna make mistakes, and we got to live with them, and we're gonna make them better. Well, I don't know how much it makes you better just sitting the rest of the game, especially when you're already short of forward and you got a power play. You have a 4-on-4 at one point in the third period. That part to me, Riles, I didn't play the game like you did. What are your thoughts?
Well, you have 2 responsibilities. You have the responsibility of teaching the individual, right, and correcting the mistake, what you don't like, addressing that. And you also have the duty of winning games and trying to win games. You're balancing both, right? And you're trying to get the most out of your players. I think to your point, like, you get the message, hang up the phone. Like, he understands, he learned. And then there were situations, as you mentioned, that you need an offensive player out there. Your job is still to win games. So having him sit there, in some of these situations, I'm not sure if that helps the overall ethos of the team.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, he still is a highly effective player. He just needs to learn the North American game, maybe trim up some of the cheating, you know, all that stuff. I get it. You know, you got to coach these guys and they got to understand it, but you also have a duty of, you know, to the team,
right?
And to do your best, because that's your job, is to do your best with what you got to win games. So if you're so worried about one guy and sending the message to one guy where it potentially affects the outcome of the game, I'm not sure that that's ideal either, right? So there's this dance between, you know, getting guys to play to the best of their abilities and maximize their potential, and to win games. And I think if you do one, naturally you win more games. But I'm not sure you can sacrifice the team outcomes for, you know, one individual player.
Right.
So I see, you know, what he's doing, and, you know, every coach and, you know, throughout history has dealt with players that they have to scratch or sit and you know, and reel back ice time. But there's a fine line there of, like, you know, that like whether they got the message, they get the message, and the team production, and you know, and towing that fine line there. So I don't have a problem with them, you know, sitting him now and then and not playing him, send the message, but you also got to look down the bench sometimes and be like, you got a power play here, you got a guy that probably has a good chance of scoring.
Right.
Throw him out there, you know? It's like, who are the coaches that we've heard stories like that before? Is like, you know, it's just like eventually just like kick the guy out.
Keenan. Sinisalo. You score a goal pretty hard from here, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, get out there then, you know what I mean? It's like, challenge the coach, like, get out there, you know? But it's just one of those things. Like, you don't have a whole lot to lean on to really kind of turn around. You know, he's probably got an FU match there with Torts, but, like, you know, he doesn't have a whole lot to, you know, to lean on when you talk about leverage to, you know, to talk to the coach and say, get me back out there. You know, it's not like he's like 10-year veteran, be like, come on, right? I mean, like, I got it. You know what I mean? Like, coach wants to see that. Look him in the eyes and be like, I'm ready. You know what I mean? Like, get me out there. If anything,
I thought Torts would like the fact that he was.
Yeah, I know exactly.
And he did say post game, I like that.
But then, like,
you're
throw
already
him a
down
bone.
a forward. You're already down a forward.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, put the kid out there. Like,
but these are, you know, coaches' decisions. And you know, this is how coaches deal with their situations. But I'm not sure, and we'll never really truly know, you know, the nature of how it impacts the team, because you can't go back in time and be like, oh, if you put a Mitchkoff out there in the power play, he might have scored a goal and won a game. You know, you'll never know that. But at the end of the day, I've heard it before. It's like the coach is always right.
That's what they say.
What they say. I'm not sure if I totally buy into that, but but that's the kind of how it goes, and he's going to live with it, unfortunately, and hopefully he just keeps building a stronger spine, and, you know, it's tougher skin, and hopefully he just keeps coming back stronger, where these conversations are a thing of the past, and you're able to have them again.
Hope so.
Shelby Shreds over on Twitter wants to know,
Shredsy,
are the Flyers getting too small?
It looks like it. Well, I mean, you got two. I mean, I guess Farabee and
they're not
bigger
huge.
than Frosty, but they're not huge. But I think they got smaller in the trade somehow.
Well, they did. They definitely did. Jacobs, he's listed at 5'10", which means he's 5'7" or 5'8".
Yeah.
We know that. But
Kuzi too.
They did get, Kuzi's not huge.
But they are getting, I don't say they're working to get smaller, but they seem to be smaller for sure compared to some of the teams in the past.
What teams win in the playoffs?
Heavy teams.
Yep.
Yeah, I know. They're not that easy to, you know, finding guys to fill slots that are heavy and productive. I think those are the guys you draft and developed.
Yeah.
Or you develop over time. But
it
definitely looks a little smaller than
a little bit smaller, but
you'd fit right in there, Nas.
I would. I'd be fine. Paul, you posted when we went in to see some of the guys. We were having some fun with the whole Bachelorette thing, and we're hugging Joel and Farabee and Brinker, and someone goes, "Nasty looks all of 4 foot." It's like, fuck, you got your own skates, boys. I'm as tall as Bobby.
Oh, Bobby
Brink.
Steve Brown from Facebook wants to know,
Brown Dog,
what elite center do you guys think Danny B should target within the rebuild?
Well, I heard someone spitting out Pettersson, like I told you. I don't know if that's the case, but
I haven't really heard any rumblings of who.
That's all I heard. I heard it from one person, and so I don't know.
I don't really know. I mean,
Who's available? Who's going to be available? That's the thing.
This guy, and this guy. But are they even for sale?
Who wants to get rid of first line's top elite?
I guess
centers?
he's talking about trade, but I mean, I guess maybe he's talking about more free agency. Who's available?
But
I don't even.
Who's available?
Well, trade wise, really, it's Pettersson and Dylan Cousins from Buffalo.
Yeah,
he scored 30 goals a couple years ago. I like the other Buffalo center.
I know.
Yeah, for sure.
Both.
Maybe
is he available?
It's almost like
what would that cost you? After that, what would that cost you, Baller? What do you think? 2 first-rounders?
Yeah, plus maybe 2 roster players who are
because
young.
he puts puck in the net. Let's not kid ourselves. So,
I think you're going to have to just hope for a situation where Buffalo continues to be bad and they decide they have to move him, or 2 teams you mentioned, the Islanders and the Red Wings. They're hot right now, but they've kind of struggled over the last
right.
week. Do they make Barzal available? Does Detroit make Larkin available?
Yeah.
Right.
I think you just almost have to hope a situation like that happens.
That's a good point.
Unless there's guys out there that we're just not thinking of.
Yeah, I agree.
Pettersson is obviously like the guy everyone's looking at right now.
Right.
Mm-hmm. You got to go on the offense now. You got to make the call. And
I'm sure Danny is.
What would it take to get that guy?
Right.
Let's get an understanding of what you have to give up.
Well,
that's just at the very baseline, and then you're probably like, hell no, or
yeah. Well, like you said, with what happened there, like some people are gonna be like, "What's the big deal?" Well, it is a fucking big deal when you're in a locker room, and that's what some fans and that they don't understand that. And that's not their fault.
No.
But that's a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
When something like that happens and you have guys looking for fucking quarters on the ground, that's not a good feeling. And I'm sure, Tage Thompson's probably got everybody on the team's his friend. I mean, just because they're not the best team in the league, they're still tight and it's a hockey locker room. But that shit matters a lot. And that's a great point. Maybe after that, he's like, you know what? Maybe I am. And you know what?
Maybe
I have a feeling with Danny, as smart as he is, he's probably making calls on guys he probably thinks, probably never going to do this, but why not try?
Why not try?
Why not try? And there's a guy right there, like Baller just said. I mean, that's a huge piece, and you never know until you ask, right? Like, so the worst they're going to say is no. But it would be an expensive piece, but you want to talk about getting a guy in here that would make a huge difference there alone.
Kevin Forkner from Twitter, he also mentioned what center should the Flyers acquire, but he also wants to know your guys' Super Bowl predictions.
Well, Riley, just so you know, Kansas City is in it, and the Philadelphia Eagles.
Oh,
just so you know,
I'm going Eagles.
Well, I figured you would. Yeah, I figured you would.
I think it's going to be.
Do you think Randall Cunningham's going to play well, or
no?
Oh no, you don't like his game?
No, I love his game.
I'm going Birds, obviously. Like, how do you like? I don't want this three-peat, and I'm a Birds fan, so obviously being here from Philly, and it's going to be awesome. I hope it's a really good game. I hope Saquon takes him down.
Oh yeah,
just runs right through him. But that Kansas City team, God, do they find ways to win? They're just so creative. Andy Reid. I mean, I love Andy. We got to meet him a few times. Like, what a good man. And it's hard not to like Mahomes as a player.
Yeah.
The guy's just so good.
Yeah.
But let's go Birds,
Definitely
baby.
going Birds,
let's go Birds.
I think they got it. They got something going on.
Matt Howard from Twitter wants to know, what do people see in Scott Lawton as a player?
Well, the thing is that, you read people's comments. You don't understand. Some people, I'm sick of hearing he's a glue guy, he's good in the room. That's so important for a team. But for me, Lawt's the way he skates, and he can play up and down the lineup, and I think that's huge when you have an injury. Obviously we've seen him play on the top line before. But the way he kills penalties, the way he skates, I mean, and we love Lawtz because we've known him a long time too. So, maybe I'm biased, but there's a guy right there that I think a lot of teams would take on their team in a heartbeat, especially going on a run, because he's that kind of guy. He'll do anything. He'll drop the middies if he has to. He'll do whatever he has to do to win. That's the thing I like about Lawtz.
Yeah, he brings the energy. He pushes the pace. You said he skates. So from that perspective, he's always bringing the energy. You mentioned he can play up and down the line. He's he can complement it really anybody, and he's willing to take a lesser role if he has to, and he's perfectly okay with it. Kills penalties. To me, he's the ideal tool man. He really is. And not to mention, he just keeps the great attitude, keeps the glue in the locker room. So, is he a highly offensive guy in the NHL? No, but he can contribute. He generates, he can generate some breakaways and odd man rushes with his speed. I think he can challenge the defenseman and generate something on the forecheck because he plays high tempo game. I think overall he's just
he's a guy to be, Riggs. If you move him and he goes to a contending team, say he's fourth line role, whatever, he'll accept that.
Oh yeah.
But he's that guy that's going to score a huge fucking goal.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? He's got that in him.
Yep. He will.
He's got enough skill to where he could do that. Obviously, he's not. We know what he is, right? And he does too. Mm-hmm. But he is a guy that I think a lot of teams would have in a second. And I'm sure Danny's getting, calls about it.
Totally. Yeah.
Especially now with moving these other two kids and
This one's from Fly Guy 7 over on Twitter. He says, for Cote, who was the toughest player you played with or against? For Nasty, who was the toughest player that wore the orange and black during your time?
That's a great question. I'm not sure, where to go with it as far as toughness because, his toughness regards to fighting. There's guys that are just really tough players, right? I mean, I'm thinking of like Jason Smith, Gator.
Oh, yeah.
Like warrior, tough. And he could fight too. But I don't think of Jason Smith as like, the toughest fighter ever.
Right.
But I also think when I think of him, I just think of like one of the toughest hockey players I ever played with.
Cracked clavicles playing.
Lappy, probably the same bucket,
Lappy,
right? Yeah. Just heart and soul guy, fight anybody, do anything. Wasn't the toughest guy fighting wise to ever play the game, but I'm like talking about toughness, hockey toughness, overall toughness. He would be up there. Even a guy like Asham, Aaron Asham, up there is tough guy. And then you go into the fighting stuff. You have to say like a guy like Brashear, George LaRocque, Brian McGrattan, like those guys were legitimately tough hockey fighters. But there's so many guys that get kind of lost in this conversation of toughness because it's not about the fighting. Like these guys still fight, but they're not known necessarily for their fighting ability, but there's the way they show up and how they play the game.
Yeah. So. Well, for me, Gators, like as far as toughness, and not talking about just fighting, like you just said, just reiterate that. He was one of the toughest guys I've ever seen. I mean, that guy was injured all the time, never said boo, played, did everything. Toughness fight-wise, Riley's obviously in my book one of the toughest pound for pound guys you were having to scrap with. It's ridiculous if you really look at the tail of the tape, so to say, with guys you were fighting. Like you just brought up LaRocque, Brashear, like those guys are animals. They were big. You were an animal, but you were giving up 40 pounds when you fought those guys. Craig Berube I had as a player, even though I was with the Phantoms. Like you can't not mention his name as one of the toughest guys because he was willing to fight even in the American League. Right. After he'd played 18 seasons. So it's been a lot of tough guys came through. Jay Rosehill is fucking tough as fucking balls. Ash, like you said, like there's another guy who probably stepped into a weight class once in a while. He shouldn't have, but he was able to hold his own and would do that for the team. So those are. And
I did want to mention one other guy, Mike Richards.
Oh God!
I mean, how can we forget Richie? I mean,
true.
This guy wore on his sleeve and competed at the highest level, and obviously highly skilled, but like
would do anything, fight.
Just brought the energy and just overall toughness. I mean, I guess you could say. When he played for the Flyers, he was probably like some bit of a modern day Bobby Clark, right? I mean, he brought that level of compete and edge, overall great, tough hockey player.
Yep.
All right, we got one more. This one is from Tom Paulitz. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Over on Facebook. He asked, where does the problem concerning the lack of development for younger players, Frost and Farabee specifically, fall? Is it on the head coach, assistant coaches, skills coaches, or upper management? I don't have a problem with the trade, he says, or these two guys or the return, but these guys were supposed to be big parts of the rebuild.
Yeah, that's the part where I kind of like I was saying, I get Danny's got to do what he's got to do, and I think part of this trade was doing them a favor. They weren't happy. We know they weren't happy.
Yeah.
Like, you could see it. I think they're both really good players. I'm not saying they're both top, first line, all this, but I think there's a skill there with Frost that, he's another guy that's in and out of the lineup, getting benched. Farabee's always dealing with it instead of just letting them play. And, they seemed to be okay before, 3 years ago. And then, even with Joel, he had a couple 20-goal seasons here. I think he could score more than that. That's just my opinion. That doesn't mean it's right. Fuck, I'm an equipment guy, but just watching as many games as I've seen, that's one thing that kind of concerns me because of their age, 25 and 24. You're not old by any means. You're not young kids, but you're. So I kind of understand what he's saying, but I guess you see in the end what which way this goes.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the development process starts obviously within the organization as soon as the player is drafted, right? The development camp and
right.
The minor leagues, right? And it's like the development process is begun. It's already begun, but once they make it to the NHL, the process continues, right? And really, it's about gaining confidence, right? It's really finding yourself and finding your groove. So I would say the ownership has to be twofold. It has to be ownership from the player, right? Because you have to be able to deal with adversity. You have to be able to battle through, coaches' decisions, because there's going to be some that you don't agree with.
Right.
And then the other side of it, I'd say the head coach more than anybody else, right, has the final say. The assistant coaches are throwing their 2 cents in. They're obviously having dialogue with upper management, but to manage ice time and the relationship that the coach has with the players. I mean, to me, the coach has probably more of an impact on development than any other player or any other coach or a resource around, because not only are they determining ice time, they have the ability to get in these guys' heads, and it's a little bit of a mind game, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, like, you've said max potential of a certain player is limited because of a relational conflict with the coach that doesn't help, the team, doesn't really help the development of the player. And then again, I go back to the player, because there always has to be ownership on the player, because they could maybe deal with things a little bit better. But it's also tough when you're in a situation where the coach really doesn't believe in you.
Right.
Doesn't believe in you as much as you did or you do.
Right. And
these types of scenarios play themselves out all the time in every team. But at some point, as a head coach, you can kind of control the development on some level, right? And you can argue on that one back and forth all day long, saying, well, this guy's not developing as much as we want. He's not playing to his potential, so we're going to play other players. We're going to limit his ice time. So there's always this dance of tough love and space, tough love and space. I'd like to see, and you're seeing this more with new modern coaches, is younger age coaches, is giving a little more space to these guys,
yes,
right? Like let them do their thing. Like we talked about DeAngelo, he's a veteran guy, and you got Patrick Roy saying, do your thing.
Yeah.
Within the limitations of, being a smart hockey player, right? And knowing the boundaries there. But to me, I think the worst thing you can ever do is keep a guy small. Like prevent that blossoming of the flower, I guess you could say, right? Is like you're creating soil, you're creating an environment for these guys to flourish. And if you're not doing that, to me, you're hindering the development. And it's a little bit more complicated, because at the end of the day, you're managing personalities and you're trying to get the most of it. But you see this a lot. I think head coaches probably do more damage to some young hockey players than good, you know. That being said, the other part of it is true too, right? I mean, you maybe have some guys that are lower on the depth chart,
right?
And you have a coach that believes in him, and he somehow finds a way to maximize that guy based on the way he carries himself and his character and all that stuff. So I always go back to the onus is on the player, though, mostly, because like you still have choice, you still have free will in how you deal with the scenario. And hockey, sports, pro sports is challenging. It's not easy.
It's not.
So you have to have thick skin, and you have to be able to deal with other people's decisions and other people's egos, without getting your own in the way.
Right.
And I think it's a constant dance. I think so.
It
long-winded, but
Yeah, good answer.
It's a wrap, Nast.
That's it?
190?
We've been here all day.
Oh. 189?
189, Riggs.
Been here all day.
Been here all day, baby.
Brewing up 189 and getting ahead of myself. Yeah.
Get it.
Wow.
Good to be back.
Good to be back. Glad you're doing well.
Yep, thank you.
Fresh. Bring it next week.
Thank you. Oh, yeah. Feeling good.
Appreciate you all, knuckleheads. Keep the questions coming. Keep the love coming. Social media, YouTube, all that good stuff. Until next week for 190.
190.
Aaron Asham. Let's go.
See ya.